community. These days with social media, they take pictures and they send to the local authority closest to where the incident happened. An investigation will start, or they send it to the police. The police is able to send it back to the local authority or let the local authority know, see, we have some concerning safeguarding concern. So like I said, it's everybody's business. It's not my business alone. It's all of us our business here to protect and safeguard our children, to support our children to thrive, to achieve, you know. So in the UK, there are certain safeguarding laws and practices. So we have a huge legal framework which says that the child, you know, the welfare of the child is paramount. And where can that be found? We all can access it. If we go on Google and type the Children Act 1989 or 2020, 2004, and 1989 specifically talks about paramountcy of the child's welfare. And what does that mean? You go into a family or a safeguarding referral comes to you, you begin to think about what's happening in this family. You go in thinking, you're not going in thinking that, okay, what I have heard, this is actually what is happening. You're going in with with no thought in your head till you hear the family's view, till you speak to the child, till you talk to everybody that is involved. Then you begin to come up with your hypotheses of what you think, if I do X, Y, and Z, this is what this child will benefit from. So the key laws are Children Act 1989, Children Act 2004. That is enhanced following, serious case reviews about children, and it also talks about safeguarding principles, and lessons learned. So there are safeguarding concerns that will come. It will just be, what, we're escalating to a child protection. But again, it doesn't mean that we're going to remove your child. No, social workers don't remove children like that, because let me tell you the real fact. Removing a child costs a lot of money, one. Our belief and our view is that the best place for a child to grow is in his or her community, that little micro community. So we may not go the child protection route immediately. We might begin from the lower level, which is, if the children, to go and do an assessment on the child, understands the family's need. Is there issue around employment? In looking at that family's need, we have a framework we work with. And in that framework, you look at how is this family supporting this child's identity, promoting this child identity. Is this child in education? Is this child having enough food to eat? What is this child doing that? Is this child able to access community resources like the GP practices, the dental practices, schools? If there are needs against, if there are concerns that this child might need some level of universal services, what we call the low level, where can we step in? But in doing that, we also try and explain to families. We don't just go and say families, I'm from children's social care. No, we explain why we're there. We talk through and also let the family know the expectations. It really works well for children's services or for social workers when the families are willing to also work with you, not having that negativity that you're being nosy. Yes, the job we do can be a little bit intrusive, but the target is for best outcome. When we believe that there are protective factors, fine, there might be risk. There's no assessment that you won't have risk, but when we weigh it, we see that the protective factors are there and the risk can be managed. Then we begin to talk to you about what we think you can put in place, and those things you can put in place can make things better. Often you also get to see parents who say, he doesn't listen, she doesn't listen. We're looking at it from this point of view that how old is this child we're talking about? Preteen? It can be difficult. We all know. It can be very difficult. But again, children do not like it when you don't involve them in any decision. We encourage a side-centered practice in such a way that you have a child, your child is telling you, Mommy, I want to go out. Okay, where do you want to go to? You need to know where the child is going to. You need to know the family the child is going to. You need to set clear expectation to say, you're going out by 12 o'clock. I want you by 2 home. You know, of course, the child will push boundaries and not come back. That does not mean you should be hitting that child. No, we don't. We kick against physical chastisement. Of course, the law says is illegal in the UK because we know that when you begin to hit the child, certain things begin to happen. If you had an existing strong relationship with that child, your relationship with your child might begin to drop. That child might begin to develop, might begin to, demonstrate behavioral problem. Kickback becomes very defiant, and there's nothing you can do. The only thing you can do is you keep shouting. Shouting will not solve the problem. You can shout, yes, it's not going to solve the problem. If you begin to also say unkind words to that child, like, look at you, your mates are doing this, you're not doing that, we classify it as emotional harm. You're making that child belittled. You're ripping that child's confidence from her. So we kick against all those things. And in kicking against those things, when we also see parents, they say, oh, I tell them to do it, they don't do it. No, we encourage you start early. When I mean start early, no matter their age, for a little young child, if you do not tidy up your child, you are not going to have screen time. For an older child, maybe primary school, or yeah, primary school, that seems to understand the consequences of things, you're expected to do your homework before you go on the screen. If you don't do it one, two, three, the third time, I say to parents, hide away the remote. I tell parents that. Take away the remote. But you need to explain to this child why you're doing that. You're not just doing it because you feel like doing it. You're doing it because you had an agreement with this child, and this child felt, I can do what I want to do. Nothing is going to happen. When you set that expectation, you find out that children, they work hard towards that. Another thing that we also encourage is, praise the child. Oh, mommy, I came back. You know what happened today? I got on a goal. Woo, fantastic. That encouragement will make that child get better. Aspire to also get more gold so that mommy and daddy would say, bravo. But when you say, oh, all this while you've been going to school, you've never gotten a gold. Think about how it impacts on that child's self-well-being. That child might begin to say, you feel I'm worthless. So what's the point? But again, we as parents, we do it without knowing. We do it out of anger. We do it out of frustration because these kids, they can wind you up. The children, I say to parents, children, their role is to wind you up. We understand that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. To be honest, they whine you, they make you scream, they make you do what you don't want to do. But again, they're not developed. Their brain is still underdeveloped. They don't understand some of these implications of why is my mom always screaming? Why is my mom always shouting? So when we go in for a section 17, sorry, we look at the basic needs of a family. It tells you that there's a child in that locality that needs help and support. We go in to do an assessment. We assess everything. Based on, we go to even to the lowest of financial difficulties. Are they income? Are they health needs? And identify where some of the risky behaviors may come in and how it will impact on the child. Now, do not forget, regardless what is happening between the parents, in terms of if there are issues around TV, we would acknowledge that, but we're looking at how does it impact on this child? Because we know that if we do not address it, the impact it will have on that child is a lot. That child might begin to say, I don't want to go to school. That child might go to school and be a lot more withdrawn. That child might have difficulties in forming relationship. That child might be very isolated. That child might also start thinking of, since this is happening between my parents, I think I need to kill myself. Self-harm. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. If that child is struck down at home, that child might also begin to think about, I think it's time for me to take my life. Yeah, he's gotten to that. But again, these are things a lot of parents don't know. And don't forget that The people, I'm not saying that is our people. Just like Ewan has said that a lot of Asian people, they have the same problem. They say these children, they don't listen. But I say to them, don't forget that we are in a Western community where there are certain things that the law does not admit. Emotional harm, telling the child down, talking to the child down, body shaming, saying the child, look at how fat you are, you can't even run. Yes, some parents do that to their children. You don't know anything. How can I be doing everything for you? Your own is just to be eaten. One. You can also say to the child, you're worthless, you're useless. That's emotional harm. you know I don't know why I even gave birth to you. Some parents have said that to their yes. I don't know. I would have killed you. I would have terminated your pregnancy. Yeah. And you see, think about how it impacts on this child. Then the child will go on misbehaving. Then you will go on saying she doesn't listen because I've said this. She doesn't listen. Then I had to hit her, and I say, listen, the law does not condone that. We say you would discipline your child, but it must be an acceptable discipline that when the law hears, they would say, yes, you did the right thing because this child was doing the wrong thing. But you see, when it comes to physical chastisement, no. When it comes to emotional abuse, no. When it comes to neglect, the neglect bit is very, very concerning. It come across a lot of communities in the UK, both the English but the Asian community, but we from Nigeria, we don't see it as neglect. We see it as I have to go to work. You cannot leave the house without keeping a food for a child. It's neglect. You cannot say, okay, my child is of that age, maybe primary six or year six, and leave for school without ensuring the child has breakfast. Fine. Even if the child doesn't like breakfast, but you at least you've offered to say, okay, you can go to Greg's, like a lot of young people do. We acknowledge that and we accept that, but we also encourage parents, make sure your child have breakfast at home. you know Neglect is a huge one in a lot of communities, especially for our own community, people who have migrated. You leaving the child that you're going to do a 12-hour shift. How old is this child, if I may ask? If this child is encountering a frightening situation, how do you think this child will cope? These are things we'll look at and we'll begin to think of. If this is happening, let's think about how it's affecting this child. And we'll make it a point of duty to see that child on his or her own, regardless of where the child lives. If the parent says, okay, you're not allowed to see my child at home, and if there are serious safeguarding concern, we would let it know to the parents that there's nothing in it in talking to your child, but we're worried about X, Y, Z. And we encourage you to engage in the process. Often I tell our people, and just get through the process. It's nothing. The worst we can do is, okay, we'll complete an assessment. After completing an assessment, we'll do a recommendation. A recommendation, you may be placed in what we call a child in need plan. And it's just for you to access services that concerns around your emotional well-being. We might send you to the emotional well-being team, but it's a very short-term intervention so that you get in. Once we get in, you've done what you need to do. We feel there's stability in around that area, then we'll go. Another law also that I want to talk about, which is very important in the UK, is what the law we call working to safeguard, working together. It was it came out, the first time it came out was 2018, but there's been a recent update last week. So it involves all professionals to share information. It's all about collaboration. It's all about sharing what you know about this child. It's all about sharing about what you know about the family. Because if it has to do with what we call a Section 47, which means that the child is at risk of significant harm, and the local authority needs to take action. Now, taking action is not taking your child. I repeat it again. No, it's not taking your child immediately. Because even if you take your child immediately, we can only do that immediately. We look at the age of the child. If the child is too young and not able to pull his or herself from harm, When I say too young is 0 to 5 cannot do anything. 0 to 7 cannot do anything. 0 to 8 cannot also do anything. 0 to 9 to a certain level depends on the maturity of the child. From 10 years old may be able to go to school and share, Miss, this is what happened. But you see, those young, vulnerable ages, we're mindful of it. It's not as if we're not mindful about other ages, but you see, the younger ones, they don't know what to do. So if they are at immediate risk of harm, we'll first of all think about, are there any family support network? Like I said earlier when I started, is our belief is the best place for a child to live is in his or her unit. Is there an auntie? Is there an uncle? Is there a friend? Is there anybody that this child has had contact with that will feel is a safe adult while we'll continue with our inquiries? If there is, we will do what we call police checks just to be sure that this adult hasn't got any ongoing police investigation and is a safe adult. Sometimes we get and say, they say, okay, this person had encounter with the police, this was the offense XYZ. And if we look at it and say, is it past 5 years? How long ago? Maybe when he was a teenager or a young adult, now he's an adult. We may say, okay, come in, let's have a talk. We'll have a talk and probably write a written agreement, and the child can stay there while we do our inquiries. We might also finish the inquiries for 5 days, where we get information from the school nursing team. If the child is 0 to 5, so is a health visitor. If the child is above 5, so from 5 till 18, is a school nurse. Then the GP would share also information about this child and possibly the parents. If there are concerns around mental health, we would get that information. Those things will form our assessment and we'll come out with a professional views, about what we think is best for this child. In all this, you still need to talk to the child separately. I know people here might say, what if the child is very young, the child cannot draw? Yes, there's what we call direct work. Sorry, we can use what the child's like to understand what is happening to the child at that point. When we finish the assessment, if it meets that threshold, it will go to what we call an ICPC panel, so initial child protection panel, where parents will be there, all the professionals that have known this child would also be there, and we'll talk about it to say this happened. This parents will be given that opportunity to share their views and what they feel. Sometimes you get parents that are a lot defensive. I would recommend, especially to our community, don't go being defensive. Don't go saying, I know my child more than you know now. Yes, your child is doing the wrong thing, but there are better approaches, and it will be told to you at that ICPC to say, you see, you hurt this child, this hurting you, this physical chastisement could lead to XYZ. This thing you've done to this child has created a mark on this child. Think about how this child will feel. This child will become resentful. This child will become isolated. This child will begin to show every form of behavior, and you come back to say, my child is not listening. So when that passes, then we'll have a plan for the parents. Some parents, I'm not saying in our community, in general, there might be need for some parents to do what we call a psychological assessment. If there are concerns around mental health and parents is not, getting support from the GP. If there are also concerns that um, the schools have said, we've tried to get mom involved because we've seen a couple of things, but mom hasn't come forth, dad hasn't come forth, then we begin to think about how do these parents understand some of these concerns, But also don't forget that before it got to that stage, the school may have observed certain things in that child's behavior. Maybe comes to school with a smelly cloth, maybe comes to school zoning off and sleeping in class, maybe comes to school yawning, showing that this child is very hungry. It would have been over a period of time. Of course, you know the school they would offer and provide. But when it gets to that information gathering, they begin to show, okay, attendance has been very poor. And you know the government threshold for attendance is 96%. You know, it has to be 96%. If it's not, it is either it might be medical needs, which you present a letter to say this child has been in and out of the hospital. This child has got some diagnosis that we need to be tripping frequently to the hospital. And not when you want to go for your funeral in Nigeria. You take off. No, I'm against it. I am one parent that is against it because it counts against you as a parent. What a lot of our people do not know is for every act you take, it counts against you. If they invite you for consultation in school and you don't attend, it counts against you. If the school sends a letter or calls you and say, please call us back, there's something we'd like to discuss with you, you don't call back, it counts against you. If your child attends school late, they keep ticking it for you, it counts against you. If it gets to attention, the school will say, no, we need to escalate some of this. But our people don't know all these things. They see social workers as the devil out there. No, no, we're not. People, what, like I said before, if they come into your family, just be calm. They're not there to eat you. They want to work with you. They want to support you. In doing those assessments, some of the family's needs will be identified. Needs around housing, needs around no recourse to public fund, needs around developmental needs around maybe a child with speech delay, a child that they believe might be presenting like a child that is on the spectrum, you know. They begin to make, once they see all those needs, they make referrals with your consent. However, if you did not consent, it becomes another challenge. That is where neglect is also looked at. Your child is not in nursery, your child is of school age, that child is not going to school. Why? What is the problem? Let us know. They want you to engage. It's important we parents engage because when we engage, we get to the root. Fine, you might say it's taking too long. Yes, it's taking too long because a lot of people are on the waiting list, but you get to be served, you get to be contacted. But your involvement and your engagement is paramount. I've also talked about is discipline right? Yes, it's very right, but it must be done in an appropriate way. We're not saying forget about your culture. No. What we're saying is, yes, we acknowledge that in your culture, children are physically chastised. In your culture, your child is not meant to talk when you're talking. In your culture, your child is raised to accept everything dad and mom says, and maybe an elder person says. But in this culture, it's illegal to physically chastise a child. In this culture, they have said it is better we hear the child. Give the child that opportunity to express him or herself. It may not make sense to you as the parent, but hear the child's out. There may be something happening, you know. But our people, the way we were raised, we were knocked on our head. We were done this, and he shaped us. In this age and time, it doesn't. I tell you what it does to children. They become so naive. You see a child, that confidence is ripped off because the parents are saying, shut up, who are you to talk? You don't talk when. No, hear the child out. Hear the child out because the law here says the child's welfare is paramount. Let the child speak. If whatever the child is telling you is not appropriate, you can take it further. You can also say, okay, you're not listening to me. For example, a child who wants to do something in school about a different career and you don't want that child to go that path, it is not in you to try to convince that child. Take it to school. I tell parents, take it to the head of year. Explain to the head of year what you feel is best for this child. The head of year might talk that child into it. But when you begin to talk to your child, it becomes a problem. They don't want to talk to you, especially when they get to that difficult age. The preteen, teenage, it is difficult. Parents struggle a lot to manage that. Do I still have time to continue talking? Shall I continue?
Yeah, just about probably 5 minutes more mass, please. I know we
Okay.
start on time, so that's my base.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So
thank you.
yeah, it's important that parents understand some of these laws and also, do what is needful. You're not in Nigeria. You're not in Asia. You're in the UK where the law forbids physical chastisement. You could if there's a mark, that safeguarding school will come and look at it and look at it. If they're not very sure of what the child is saying, they would contact the local authority and say, this child has come home or has come to school with a very, very questionable mark. And why is it questionable? Where the mark is, the child's explanation is not adding up. I think it calls for safeguarding concern. Then we start our investigate. Yes, yes. Again, also, your children, you shouldn't cage them. When we were back home, we're not allowed to do things we're not supposed to do. But here, you know that socialization is important for a child. But again, with your guidance and support, don't say go off and come back by 2. Make sure you know where the child is going. If you have the child's parents contact who he's going to meet, in fact, I tell parents, get on Life 360. It solves the problem. But in all these things, you have to explain with your child. My own children, I tell them you can know where I am if you check on the line, and they're fine with it. It's something you can discuss with your child, and they see the point, so that if things begin to happen, you could be able to trace that child and say, okay, at this point, the child was here at this time. There's no fuse about it. It helps everybody. Make the expectation clear. You're in this family, you must follow what we do. We're not saying you shouldn't go out, but if you need to go out, tell your friends you need to be back home by 6 p.m. Anything other than that, I'm not accepting. Your children, they know you best. They know that once they push that boundary and you say no, they relax. They relax. And these are things you can talk over. Very, very reasonable parents or reasonable child will understand. See the point, my parents want me to do this because of this. And also you try and explain to the children your safety counts. The community is not safe. You could be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And we do not want, they see it. They understand. When you talk to children calmly, you get the best out of them. Someone said to me, why should I say please to my child? I say, hang on, is this Nigeria? This is not Nigeria, please. You know, your child has certain rights here. You want to be treated fairly. I think in return, you should talk to your child, speak to your child in a very civil manner, because what you throw out is what you get back. Yeah. If you're very unkind and you scream at that child, when the child is talking to you, the child is going to talk to you back the same way and begin to wonder, what? My little child of yesterday, how can you be talking to me like that? But we don't see it that way. Our culture back home has so messed us up. Would I say messed us up? Has so much made us think that it must be that way we were raised. No, in the UK it's not. There are laws and policies guiding children, which parents must abide to. It's very easy, I must tell you. I know it can be difficult, especially with parents who have migrated. Trying to meet both ends meet can be very difficult, but you can work things around and you can explain to your children. Sometimes we encourage parents, get a job that suits your children's routine so that when they're going home, you're going home. All of you leave the house the same time. They come back, you come back the same time. You do things together. They understand that routine. It's not when you go off 3 days and you're going from one home to another home to care for another person. Meanwhile, there are concerns around your child. When social services hear it, they feel very bad. Not only that they feel very bad, they give you measures that you think, oh, how am I going to achieve all this? They make you go through all the tests. If there are concerns around alcohol, they'll brutalize you. If there are concerns around your capacity to be a parent, they would make you go through a parenting assessment. Do we want all this? We can avoid it. We can't really avoid it before it gets to that stage of, okay, now we're going to take the children, we're doing a section 47. I try to tell parents, let's limit it to what we call the section 17, which is a child living in that area is in need of something. You going in, assessing it, thinking about the family situation, see how you can link that family to go for interventions, and you shut it down. It's usually a short term. I mean, we also as social workers, we don't want to, I don't want to, if I close a case, I tell the parents, I don't want to see you back again, please. I don't want to have anything to do with you because I have been able to give you a lot of insight around to manage some of this behavior. And I make parents understand that preteens and teenagers, they lack empathy. A lot of them lack empathy, but you don't blame them. It's where they are in their development. Identity, confusion. My friends are doing this, I need to do it. But my parents here are saying this is not part of my culture. You know, it's something you teach them. For example, you get young children in secondary school vaping. If you say stop, stop, it doesn't stop. They're vaping. Just get a literature around vape and show them. Some will say, really? So I'm going to die. I said, we never said you're going to die, but we're thinking about the long-term impact it's going to have on your developing lungs. Some see it and understand what you're talking about. Some quit. Some will try and struggle. For those ones that will try and struggle, you give them someone who will talk to them. A lot of teenagers in this country, it has worked and it's still working. Is when they have issues and they're on a plan, they get a mentor. That mentor changes them. The good one, you see them, they turn from everything and they become a real person. So I don't know, you can't still discipline your children in this country, but it must be appropriate. It must not be with belt. It must not be with a stick. It must not be with sleepers. It's something you can sit down and say, because you have done X, Y, Z, I am limiting screen time. You're not going to go out with your friends next week. You know, those privileges, you cut them. The child will be very upset at first, but the child will accept, you know, knowing that this is what my parents want me to do. And if I do it, it takes my parents to do things I do not like. So you have to be within that range. Okay? Thank
Thank
you.
you so, so much. Honestly, I could just stay here and listen to you talk and talk and talk, and I wouldn't get bored because, that's really interesting. I do appreciate. Please, let's appreciate our first guest speaker. If you want to use the clap, the love, please, let's just appreciate her. Thank you so much. That is so, so beautiful. What you've explained, and you touched a lot. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the love, people. Thank you. You touched a lot of topic. And one interesting thing about this topic, safeguarding discipline, is very broad. We could be here for 3-4 sessions. We still would not be able to cover all the important areas in this topic. So it's very broad. But before I hand over to Deaconess Ruth Omoregre, Dr. Ruth, I knew as Deaconess before she became a doctor, so I keep calling Deaconess. But my big auntie, Dr. Ruth, before I hand over to her, I don't know if anybody's got any question that you want to ask. If you haven't, I made loads of notes down. While you're typing your question, you want to put your hands up to ask your question. I am going to thank you for the love. I've just seen the messages. If you have a question, please put your hands up. But before anybody put their hand up or put a question, I have 3 questions, but I'm going to ask one. We go over to Dr. Ruth, and then we might have time for the other question. You talked about people working in a job that fits their life, fits their children's life, because it's a very reasonable thing to do. But 2 questions actually. At what age can we leave children alone in the UK? And I'm sure that my big sister, Dr. Ruth, will tell us if it's the same in Ireland as well. But at what age can I confidently leave my kid without any additional needs? Okay. At what age can I leave them at home without having to panic that, oh, I might get into trouble?
I mean, you see this question, it comes up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go to NSPCC site,
Yeah.
it tells you that there is no certain age. However, you cannot leave a child 0 to, in fact, You cannot leave 0 to 5 at home. You will be blamed. There's been instances where the postman went to put a post in a post hole and noticed that there were 3 children without an adult in the home. The eldest was 5 years old. It was the postman that went out to contact the police, and they came in and saw that the 3 children were left alone. So that called for proper safeguarding. But again, I wouldn't say 0 to 5, because if they are in frightening situation, they would not know what to do. I wouldn't also say 0 to 10. It depends on the child's maturity and how the child understands risk taking. It is not recommended that you leave 0 to 10 at home. No, it is not. It's from maybe the secondary school age, but it might be just maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes before you come back. It's not recommended at all, because things could go off. There could be light, things could just go off, and that child might not be able to think out, what do I do? So it's not recommended. It depends on the age of the child and the maturity of the child, but the younger ages at all is not recommended. Maybe from secondary school or age, because the child might be home like 4 o'clock and you're on the train. You can make an argument and say, yes, I usually get home 4 o'clock. So once she or he leaves school, I'm also on my way home. But when they're too young, no, never, nah. That child can open the door and walk away. That child can do things that could frighten them, and they wouldn't know how to get out from it. There's been instances where a mom went to buy milk in Tesco, and by the time mom could come back, the 3 plates were on fire. Yes, and they were under 5. They were under 5. There were 3 plates, 3 boys. You know how they're exploring. Why should you leave them at home at that? Go with them. Your argument was that, oh, yes, I was just going to Tesco, but why didn't you go with them? So it's not recommended. But if you go to NSPCC site, it will tell you it depends on the child's maturity and age. Children mature differently. You know your child better. It is not recommended, but you know your child better. If your child is able to say, oh, this is happening, who do I call next? Then you can begin to say, okay, maybe I try you 10 minutes, but it's not recommended. It's a very tricky one. You know your child, you know how responsible your child is. I wouldn't say 0 to 5. No. Why should you leave 0 to 5? Why? Yeah. But as they grow, you know your child, you know how mature, how responsible your child is. Then you can begin to think, okay, maybe because you leave school at this time, I'll be on my way, then we'll be home. Maybe I'll be home maybe 10, 15 minutes just before you get home, because the secondary school ages, they go to school themselves and they come back on their own. But again, they should be able to understand that these are risky behaviors. You should not, you don't expect them when they come back, they start going cooking rice. No. There might be food in the fridge, they can warm, but not, putting up the cooker. No, we don't encourage that. Okay. So it depends on your child. How mature is your child? How sensible is your child? But if you leave that child for too long, there might be frightening situation, and that child might not be able to think of what to do or get away with it.
Thank you so much. I have 1,000,001 questions in my head, but we haven't got that time.
I know.
And once again, thank you so much, Sister Ngozi. I do appreciate your time. And I'm going to go over to my big sister, Dr. Ruth Omereke, and to apologize to everybody that when we started, I was all over the place. My laptop was acting up. I had to switch over to the phone. Now I'm sharing live on YouTube. Now I can do that. And I think I'm still recording as well. So we lost about 15 minutes when I was trying to sort everything out. So that's why we're kind of running late. So thank you so much, Sister Ngozi. Now we're going over to Dr. Ruth, my big sister, my auntie. She's from Ireland, and I bet this is her area. She's going to tell us about the teas and safeguarding and how we have to look after them. I've spoken to Dr. Ruth, and I know how passionate she is about safeguarding, about looking after the younger ones. So yeah, looking forward to what you will teach us.
Thank you so much, my classic. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks for
God
the
bless you.
invitation. And also thanks to our honorable first speaker, Sister Ngozi. You did well. Oh. I don't even know where I should start now. Okay. God Almighty bless you. That was a wonderful delivery. Thank you so much. And also, I just want to appreciate everyone on this platform today. And you'll be wondering, why am I doing this appreciation? But let me just say to you that you are lucky, you are favored, and you are blessed. A lot of things that I do know now, maybe if I had known then, things that I did, I wouldn't have done them. But a lot of parents went through a system whereby they were not really aware or informed. But thank God that today so many of us are in the line of social work and we're able to empower people. And once again, I want to congratulate you all for making it this afternoon or this evening to be here. And usually when I'm doing a presentation of this nature, I always like sharing slide because it's a way that I believe that I can engage with my audience. So please, Sister Anwa, can I share my slide?
Of course, ma. Is it restricting you from doing that?
No, I just need your permission anyway to
Oh,
do
of
that.
course.
Okay.
Carry on, ma.
All right. Can we see that? Can you see my screen? Okay. So the topic before us says living in a system that prioritizes safeguarding how immigrant parents can raise disciplined teens, that's teenagers. So Sister Ngozi has actually explored the young ones, that's the children below the age of 12. So my focus is going to be on the teenagers. But before we go into that, I want us to just kind of open our minds wide to have this understanding that when we're talking about immigrants, we're talking about people that are coming from outside where they are now into this place. So probably we're referring to Africans, we are referring to Asians, people that are not living in the European Union where we are, or in the UK. So my focus majorly is going to be on Africans because I want to believe that majority of the participants here today, they are Africans. And defining immigrants, we have two categories of immigrants in Europe, that's in the UK and in Ireland. Let me just restrict myself to these two countries, in the UK and in Ireland. So we have immigrants that came into the UK and Ireland, without children and eventually got married and started raising children. So which means their children were born in the UK and in Ireland. And the second category is the category of parents of migrants that relocated to the UK and to Ireland with children. So which means their children were not born in this part of the world. So basically, they were born in a different environment and now they are growing in a new environment. So I hope you're following me. So you could see that children that are born here, growing up here, might have a different approach and understanding in terms of parenting, by their parents. And children that grew up in Nigeria, probably grew in Nigeria and were now relocated back to UK or Ireland, probably through work visa by their parents and all that, may also have a different experience. So when we're looking at both categories, we're going to be looking at rights. What are the rights here? What are the challenges here? Because parents that are coming, that probably came in here, started raising children here, probably got an exposure into the child protection laws before their children were born. Whereas those ones that came from Nigeria with their children probably never got an exposure. And even if they did, probably they came with their jiggy jiggy, gra gra, and say, no, what we say is final. So they want to go through trying the law before following the rule or following what the law says. But one thing that I want every immigrant parent to know, and you must take this on board and let it be at the back of your mind, that your children, immediately they step their feet into this place, if they hadn't known their rights before, the first thing that they are taught here is their right. their right. They are taught their rights. So you might be surprised that by the time they come back from school one day, they are telling you things about their rights more than what you already know. And before you know what's that, they might start, trying to kind of test powers with you. So where I'm going on with this is just to let us know that we have two categories of families here tonight. And whichever category that you find yourself, I want you to prepare your mind to start taking a shift, because the way you parent young children is not the same way you parent a teenager. It's not the same way. I have teenager in my house. I have young adults in my house. My parenting has been tested in different ways, even as a social worker. So, and also I work with lots of youths in the church and through my concerts. So follow me on this ride. Just gonna run through this quickly. Sister Ngozi has given a huge background around our role and safeguarding and all that, but I'm going to be giving a little bit of insight from the Irish perspective. So safeguarding children and young people is a critical issue that affects everyone in the community. So we all have the responsibility to create safe and nurturing environment for children and young people to grow and thrive in. Child abuse and neglect are unfortunately all too common, and it can happen anywhere. For example, in homes, schools, sports centers, activity clubs, and all that. The effects of abuse and neglect can be devastating and long-lasting, and it's our duty to do everything we can to prevent it. By taking the necessary steps to safeguard children and young people, we are protecting the vulnerable members of our community. We are protecting them. So there are legal and regulatory requirements for safeguarding children and young people in Ireland, which means that it is not only a moral imperative, but a legal obligation as well. So failure to comply with safeguarding legislation can result in serious consequences. So whether you're the one that carried the child for 10 months, 9 months, whatever months you carry the child, if anything happens, you breach the law, it's wahala. So we are here to take information that will help us. So now let's look at the legal and regulatory framework. The legal and regulatory framework for safeguarding children and young people in Ireland includes both legislation and guidance that are designed to protect children and young people from harm. One of the key pieces of our legislation in this part of the world is Children First 2015. This legislation places a legal obligation on certain individuals and organizations, that's including churches, to report any concerns or suspicions that they may have about child abuse or neglect to the appropriate authorities. It also outlines procedures for risk assessment and management, recruitment and vetting, and training and education. I'll be saying some things about vetting, especially those of us that have children that attend grinds. Maybe one uncle is coming to the house to come and teach your children mathematics. You don't know whether the uncle has a history of sexual abuse or whatever. We have to be very, very careful. So Children First, we have it there. That's our guidance there. So overall, the legal and regulatory framework for safeguarding children and young people in Ireland is designed to ensure that everyone who works with children and young people is aware of their responsibilities and takes necessary steps to protect them from harm. They must comply with this framework to ensure that they are creating safe and nurturing environments for children. This includes Sunday school teachers. If you are here, you are working in children and youth ministry, and a child is showing signs of abuse, or even a parent doing physical chastisement in your presence, the onus lies on you to report. Because the day it comes into the hands of the authority that you were there when this happened, you are also in for a serious problem. So we have the National Vetting Bureau there. So for any organization or individual that we work with, they should be gathered vetted. We also have the Children First National Guidance that's been updated in 2017. Then the criminal justice. This one is very, very important. among us as people from African descent, we try as much as possible to avoid problem. I didn't say it, so don't involve me. No, I don't want to be called into it. Whatever your eyes see, one day your mouth will be forced to talk about it. And that's why we talk about the criminal justice withholding of information of offenses against children and vulnerable persons Act 2012. So under this act, it is a criminal offense to withhold information about a serious offense, including sexual offense against a person under the age of 18. Under the age of 18. Because even recently, we are not seeing lots of retrospective child abuse allegations that children are raising against their fathers, their parents that have abused them in the past. So if you are an uncle here, or you are 90 here, and you have noticed a child, either in the family or in your neighborhood, please speak out. Because when you do so, that intervention might just be saving a life. Please speak out. Where is my slide? Uh-oh. Sorry, I'm losing something here. I don't know what I put to my slide. Okay. All right. Now, child abuse and neglect, we all know what that means. So I'm not going to go deep into that. So Sister Ngozi has actually mentioned all that. But it's important to know that child abuse and neglect can have a long-term physical, emotional, and psychological effects on children and can significantly impact their development and well-being. And before you know what's happening, they take that kind of thing, that same behavior into their family when they become adults and they get married. And that's what is affecting a lot of immigrants today. So, immigrant parents in a safeguarding focused system. Living in a safeguarding focused system, presents both support and challenges for immigrant parents raising teenagers. Teenagers are children, between the age of 13 to 19. So while such systems protect children's rights and well-being, they may limit traditional disciplinary methods. So parents must adapt by shifting from strict control to guidance through communication, consistency, and mutual respect. You are in a culture of, it's not when I'm talking, you keep quiet. No, we are both talking. We need to listen to each other. That's the culture that we are in. So where you are coming from is, when I'm talking, don't talk. And when I say, do this, you must do it. No, it doesn't work here. It doesn't work here. So you need to shift. And when you are shifting, shift in a way that doesn't look as if you are losing power. Stylishly shift with understanding. So understanding local laws and schools' expectation is essential. Sister Ngozi has mentioned a lot about the school piece. I'm not going to go into that. So at the same time, maintaining cultural values helps shape identity and discipline. And by blending their heritage with safeguarding principles, immigrant parents can raise responsible, self-disciplined teenagers who respect boundaries while developing independence and confidence within the society that they live in. I actually was looking at this, and one of my children said, sometimes we parents, when we use the word discipline, it's about power. We need to be very mindful of that. We talk about discipline. And when you also look at it in the workplace, when you are going through disciplinary process, it's like you've done something and the organization wants to use power now to address the issue. And that's what we're saying. So I think as parents, we should be mindful of how we use the word discipline. We should be mindful of that. Now let's look at strategies. This is the area I want us to focus on. And if possible, I want us to also make it interactive. Strategies for disciplining teenagers without breaking the law. Now, who are these teenagers? Who are the teenagers? A teenager is a person who is between the age of 13 and 19 years old. So the term comes from the fact that these ages end in 10. Okay? So the key aspects of being a teenager is just the age range anyway. But you now look at their life stages as well. So it's part of adolescence, the transition between childhood and adulthood. And if you are in their shoe, just begin to process it. The level of confusion that sometimes that they go through. They are transiting from childhood. I'm no longer a child. Don't put me in that category. Now I'm going to be an adult. And for the ones that have adult siblings, what you know was that they are even behaving more like an adult than even their adult siblings because they want to grow fast. So what I tell them is that please don't run too fast. Enjoy your teenage years because adulthood comes with so much responsibility, you know. So you also look at their development with their breasts, like the girls, they have their breasts. You know, sometimes when you are not careful as a man, you think that girl that you are eyeing is an adult. We've had that experience one of our events 2 years ago, where one young guy was looking into one of my youngies look and following up and down, not knowing that this guy is just 12 years old. And this young man is doing his master's because of the way the young girl dressed. You know, the young man came from Nigeria looking for a bride, looking for a wife, was following this girl up and down, not knowing that the girl is just 12. So you could see that their developmental stage, the way they are, they grow fast, you know, and they look like adults as well. So we have to be very, very careful. If you are a young man and you are looking for a wife, do not just go approach a girl and say because you look like an adult, you start talking to her. You might just be talking to a young girl before they tag you a pedophile. So you have to be very careful. Do your research very well so that you don't get yourself into problems. Okay? So you also look at the legal status. This legal status is my strength. And as a parent and as a social worker, it has worked so well for me. And I'm going to share this with you as parents here. That, you know, looking at their legal status, you know, for the teenagers, though they in Ireland, I think from the age of 16, they could work, you know, and from that same age of 16, they could do their driving test, that's the learner's permit, but from 17, they can start driving. Then from the age of 17 plus or so, they can consent in terms of sexual wherever, you know, but they are still minors as long as they are below that age of 18. But as a parent, you can actually use this as a weapon, you know, for these teenagers so that they can behave themselves in as much as they are looking forward to becoming an adult. Use this to let them know that, one, there are things that the law will never support you on by the time you move this way. Because if you break the law at this age, it's going to be in your record for life. It's going to be on your record for life. You know, there are some places whereby some people believe that some things will be taken off their record. But I want to make you understand here, based on my experience in Ireland, because I've gotten a huge experience around GADA vetting. And currently in my organization, I'm the GADA vetting officer. There are things that people did when they were teenagers. They are in their 50s now. Those things are still very much in their GADA vetting record. Though one may not use that to make decisions, you know, against them. Probably they've changed, you know, growing into adulthood, maybe the past 10 years or 15 years, they've not offended, they've not done anything criminal. But those things are still there. They are still there. And it's important that we let our children know that as you are excited to becoming an adult, you need to be more responsible. Because if anything goes wrong and these things go into your record, they are going to be there for life. So people are dragging you here and there. Let's go this way. Let's go that way. Come into my car. Then, you know, and you're going here and there. Some things are not actually in order in that particular car. If anything happens and the police stops both of all of you, you are in for a serious problem. So you must be careful. Even sometimes, even if it's not up to that, at least use your wisdom as a mother. You can even exaggerate it. And that will also challenge their understanding. They will behave themselves as well. Sometimes they might say, no, don't just put this fear in my heart. I don't want to hear. Okay, no problem. Go well, come back well. That's fine. But I assure you, you have said it. They might not respond in a positive way, but they will take that instruction on board. Even when their friends are trying to kind of pull them, no, I need to protect my record. I need to protect myself. Okay? So, now let's move on. Raising a disciplined teenager. So, like I said, this can be achieved with with the right approach, method, and timing. And disciplining a teenager effectively is really about guiding behavior. It's not controlling, you know. And you look at these teenagers, especially when they're approaching the age of 16, let's say 15, 16, you know, from let's say 12 to 13, just you can still manage them. You can say, sit down there, they will sit down. Don't go. They will wait. Wait for me, they will wait. Don't talk to that person. Don't go online. They will listen. But by the time they are approaching the age of 15, 14, 15, you will be shocked the way they will begin to challenge you. The way they will begin to challenge you. Please, as parents, don't be offended. It's just an indication that they are growing. I didn't know before. By the time I knew, I said, okay, I can see it's an indication of growth. Yeah. So don't be offended. Okay. I'm talking to you. Is there any way we can have this conversation in a way that we don't have to shout over each other? How do you want it? You know, and what time will suit you? Do you want to have a me time? I have what I call me time with my children, and that's really worked for me when I spend a day with one child per time. So that we arrange it in a way that suits. So the me time will involve what he or she wants to do. Do you want us to go out for dinner? Do you want us to go for a ride? Do you want us to go, you know, any activity that child wants to do? So that gives me the space as well to have conversation regarding behavior. Please, parents, remember, you're coming from a place whereby you can tell a child, sit down there. The child will sit down because Baba or Iye or Daddy or Mommy said so. But you are in a place where we are now, where you say a teenager, sit down, they will say, why? Why are you asking me to sit down? And sometimes if you are not careful, they might even ask you, are you also sitting down? You know, please don't be offended. When you are giving them an instruction, give them a reason why that instruction is being communicated. And let it be around something that has to do with safeguarding. Maybe you've assessed the risk. You say, this is what I'm seeing. I don't think something is right here. Why don't you sit down? Let me quickly go check. Don't move. I'm coming. Let me check. Or do you want to come with me? They might want to come because they don't want to belittle them, especially the male. Actually, the male teenagers. They believe that you should sit down as a mother or as a father, especially when they are huge and masculine. Say, Mom, can you sit down? Let me go check this thing out. You know, you can say, no, because of your age, I don't want anything to happen to you. I'll go with you. But if you tell that boy to sit down, when you go, you are belittling the child. You are belittling him. So we should be conscious of that. They love this kind of teamwork thing. You know, they don't like being belittled or being looked at up, you know, upon. Now let's look at okay, the goal is to teach responsibility, emotional regulation, and decision making without damaging trust or self-esteem. That is our goal. Whatever you do as a parent, the main thing that should be at the back of your mind in your relationship with your children is trust relationship. That no matter what they do as a child, even if it's not what you want to hear, that they will be so confident to tell you that, oh, Mom, this is where I was last night. I know it's not what you want to hear anyway, but this is what happened. I just want to let you know. That's trust. Because I'll be able to raise my own children to let them know that wherever they find themselves or whatever they do, let me just know. I don't want to hear from a third party. And it's really working. And like Sister Ngozi said, the Life 360 app is fantastic. I've had it for years and it's really helpful. Even when I'm looking for them, they'll say, but you have my app. Why are you calling me? You know, I'll say, my apologies. I just wanted to check when you're coming home. Oh, but I'm not coming home tonight. I'm coming home around 4 a.m. Who am I to say, hey, don't come in, just pass the apps. If you don't come in at 12 o'clock, go and sleep. You know, by the time you make such statements, you are putting that child at a more higher risk. You know, as long as they have the key to come back, to open the door and come in, they come in and they don't disturb you, then you have your own sleep. And as they grow in life, God will continue to protect them. Most times, what we are afraid of doesn't happen, never happens, you know. Okay. Now let's look at the strategies. Before we look at the strategies, let me just take this back. If you have your teenager here I want to hear from you. What strategy is actually working for you as a parent? Or what strategy has worked for you? If you have a teenager that is 16, not below 16 now. Let's look at 16. If you have a child that is 16, because that age seems to be quite challenging because a lot of consent that they do a lot of consent and all that, and they know that they can sign some things themselves. They don't need to come to you for directions. If you're a parent here, what strategy is working for you?
Hello, ma. Good evening, ma.
Good evening, ma.
Yeah, my own is what actually is not working. What I really,
Okay, ma.
because I have
Okay,
a
sorry,
teenager.
sorry, ma. Before we go into what is not working,
Yeah.
I want us to look at what is working.
Okay.
Yeah, so that we can.
Okay, let me rephrase it then. What
Okay.
works for me is when the both parents are on the same page. Like
Okay.
when the child asks the mom, "Can I do this?" And the mom says no. And then it goes back to the dad. And the dad says yes. For me, okay, you say what is working. That doesn't work. And what works well is when the two of them are on the same page and they're looking out for the best interest of the child.
Of the child. Thank you so much. Another parent want to share?
Yes, ma, I do. I do.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma.
Thank you very much, ma. I've got teenagers that age and above, and
Okay.
what's working for me, one thing I can say is trust, which I'm still trying to build. I don't know if it's because by the grace of God, my parenting skills were that great that it's like I don't have to worry too much when my child says this is where I am. And thank you for that app. I know is it 360 Live or Live 360?
Yeah, Live 360 app, yeah.
Okay, I don't use that. I use Google for
Okay.
my daughter, especially. When she leaves the house, by the time she's leaving, she puts it in the family group, and I explain just for your safety, we've done all that. But what works for me at the moment, by the grace of God, is I think we've gotten to that stage where I trust my child and she actually trusts me. I want to believe by the grace of God. And there have been things that she have confided in me.
Yes.
In the past that I was like, oh, what if she had not told me these things?
Yes.
So I think, and some time ago, I did ask, I remember when I asked, what is it about me that you don't like, really? What is it as
That's
a parent
good.
that I'm doing that you don't
You
like? One
don't
of the
lie.
things she could say was, you shout, you shout, you shout, which I thought, okay, that's something to reflect on. To be honest, the African parent in me did think if it's only shouting, I'm not doing too bad if you're really worried about the shouting. So, but I think over the years, we kind of built that trust for each other and that
Yes.
respect for each other that is
Yes.
working at the moment. Thank
Thank
you,
you
ma.
so much. Thank you. Trust is very important. Very, very important. There was an incident years ago of a child that went to a party. Actually, the parents supported his child during the day, went to grinds, and came back, gave the child money. The child was going to visit a friend somewhere, gave the child money to get a drink for himself, only for the child to eventually went to a party with his group of friends and got stuck in the party because he didn't leave the party on time. He missed the bus home. His battery ran out. And even when the parents of his friends were collecting his friends left him in the party. They never gave him a lift home. So during the course of looking for him and say, where is this boy? Where is he? So through a friend in the UK, through social media, someone in the UK was not the one that said to the parent that this boy is somewhere here in Ireland for a party. That she actually saw the communication on their social media this afternoon when they were talking about a party. This time it was already 11:30 at night. At that time, I think the boy was about 15 or 16 years old. So dad had to go pick up the boy from the party. And in the morning when mom came back from work, the boy was worried that mom was going to lash out. But rather than the mom lashing out, the mom considered it as a trust issue. I called the boy and said, no, I'm not going to be angry with you. It just shows that you don't trust me enough to tell me that you were going to a party. And what you did was a high risk thing anyway, because you never told me about the party. If anything had happened there, the person that is doing the party would have considered you as an intruder, and then you would have been arrested, and a lot of things would have gone wrong. So going forward, this is how we go to parties. There's a protocol to be followed when you have an invitation. When you have an invite, let your parents know about the invitation. Then your parents will ring the person that is celebrating, whatever, just to be sure that you are on the guest list. So that in case anything happens, they won't say that you are an intruder. And also when you're going to a party, you need to go with a gift for the celebrant. And that was how that issue was resolved. And that actually strengthened that boy's relationship with mom and dad to date. All right, Sister Ngozi, you want to say something? Okay.
Thank you so much. Your process has been, or your slides have been quite self-explanatory. But you see, on the beat of the 16-year-old boy, often you find out that when you get to talk to them, you find out that they have already made that decision that they didn't want to go to that party. But meeting a pair, it was peer pressure that pushed that now made the child forget that, oh, my parents were going to feel bad. I mean, his friends will say, forget about them. Let's go. Don't worry about. Yeah, they tell them, they say, why are you listening to them? It's your life. You want them to be controlling your life. No, you should be controlling your life yourself. And he goes and gets into trouble. But see, while he was at the party, I bet you his heart was pounding because he didn't tell his parents. It's just peer pressure, which, like I say to parents, we need to manage some of these expectations. They don't know what's happening to them. Their hormones are fluctuating up and down. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you very much. I'm just gonna go into this quickly. The strategies. So the first one here says focus on connection first. So things are far more likely to listen if they feel respected and understood. That doesn't mean agreeing with everything. It means hearing them out without immediately judging or reacting. So try help me understand what happened. And also avoid jumping straight to punishment or lectures. Because we have lots of experience, we just end up rushing all the time. Want to give them all the lectures. Like my son will always say, Mom, please, can you just hold on like this? Mom, can you just hold on? Can I just finish first? And that actually works. Can you just hold on? It's okay, that's fine. Go ahead. Okay. Number 2, set clear, consistent boundaries. So rules should be simple, predictable, and explained. Thus, should be done in a calmly manner. So instead of because I said so, explain the reasoning. Always explain that safety. Safety, respect, responsibility. Because when you go out, I'm not there. You have to be responsible. You have to be accountable. So things push limits anyway, less when expectations are clear and consistent. So when the expectations are clear and consistent, the limits, the push is less. Letting them know that if anything happens, you are the one that is going to be in it, not me. Like I always say to parents, it's always good to let them know that you are living your life. That's their life. So how you going to live it? How you want to go about your life? It's your prerogative. All I'm here to do is to guide you. And as much as I can, I'll do my best for you. So give them bulk of that responsibility. Even if you have your worries and fears, keep them to yourself. Or it's the beginning to look at us as if we are chickens and we don't have, we are so fearful, we're so afraid for all them. Keep your worries and fears to yourself. Just kind of share the safety issues with them and let them know that if anything happens, it's your life. But you see, the world that we are living is so beautiful and there's still a lot to be done. So do not do anything that will destroy 10 years' time or 15 years' time or 20 years' time. I said because a lot of adults today, they still have a lot of regrets in their life. Unfortunately, they can't change them. So you have the space now to do the right thing. You must get it right. So when you keep on emphasizing that, insisting on that, you are communicating to them. And the consistent boundaries are so important. Like I tell my teenagers here, by the time you are 18, like even the teenager, the youngest, she's a teenager. She will tell the young adults that mom and dad are no longer responsible for you guys. I own this house more than you. So if you want us to have peace, please maintain your boundaries. Take care of yourself. Just give me my space. I own this house more than you do. So when you have these people in your environment, let them know that very soon you're going to be 18, or you're already 18, you're old enough to start working. If I'm giving you things in the house, supporting you, it's just a way of love, of showing love. At least a lot of people, we know people that left when they were 18 and they were able to focus on their life and were able to carry family today. So you are in a country whereby by the time you're 17 or 16, you can actually get a job. You can make money and feed yourself and hire accommodation and take care of yourself. So if you're in my house, you must follow the rules because every family has rules anyway. There are house rules. You must follow the rules. You cannot be here and not abide by the rules or probably traumatizing somebody's life. So set those boundaries. And when you are setting the boundaries, do it in a very calm manner as well. You know, do it in a calm manner. And family meetings are very important in all these things. Have family meetings consistently with them. What are we doing? Or what are we not supposed to do? Or what are we supposed to do as a family? What are the plans for the new year? Where are we going together as a family? What are we doing together? What's your own goal? Family meetings are very important, even on weekly basis. Very, very important, where they can have open conversation, honest conversation with you as a parent. Use natural and logical consequences. Stangosi has actually mentioned that anyway. So if anything is going to go wrong, like I tell my children, if you do this, this is the consequence. Before I put my forward, God, our creator, will take action. So do you want God to take action? Because we are Christians. I know that we have some people that might not be Christians anyway on this platform, with due respect to whoever is not a Christian here. But I believe, and I always tell them that God that we serve, and I said, honor your father and mother, that your days will be long on earth, knew what was going to happen at this particular stage in your life, that there's going to be a bit of struggle, where the devil will want to probably put in some things in your heart against your parents, to try their authority or bring them down. But it's important that you must first of all know that at all times, honor does not have another word. Honor is important that you must give to your parents. Even when sometimes they are not they're not right, but even listening to them and also coming back to say, okay, can we talk about this now, is a good thing. And one of my children, whenever there's an argument, she just keep quiet. Sometimes she'll walk away. She say, "Can I go? Can I come back, Mom? I think we should have this conversation later." And she'll actually go away. And when you allow her go at that particular time, she will come back to you and say, "Now, can we really talk? Can we really talk?" When we were talking about this the other time, your voice was quite high, and that actually made me uncomfortable. Can we have it in a better way now? Okay, all right, go ahead. And whatever we agree at that particular time, I'm 100% sure that it's going to be actioned and it's working. So please, parents, what works for one particular child might not work for another. One might say, stop, I'm still talking. Can I just finish? And that stop means pause. And you have to respect yourself. Please pause. Keeping quiet at that particular time doesn't make you less of a parent. It's just trying to manage the situation, because if everybody is shouting here and there, before you know what's happening, the police will be at the door. And then you also ask yourself, am I a child or am I a parent? Why am I shouting? Why should my voice be high? So you must study your children and know what works for them. Know what works for them. So we also have this calming, stay calm, like I said. Teens' brains are still developing emotional control. So if you escalate, it becomes a power struggle instead of a learning moment. And they will tell you, if you escalate as a parent and you want to eat them, they will tell you to your face, with due respect, I have right to defend myself. And yes, in the court of law, They do. So never, as a parent, raise your hand against your teenager. Against your teenager. Say you want to do it the African way. It will become like this, and you'll be surprised that your young boy will bring you down. And when police comes, he or she will say, I was defending myself. I remember once saying some time ago, one of my relatives, that, no, I can call the police because I can't stand any assault. Even if it's in my parents' house, never. You can't assault me. You cannot assault me. Okay? So number 5, another strategy is, let's avoid shame, insults, or threats. Parents are so quick at saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to throw you out of the house. I'm going to throw you out of the house. Sometimes even look at the house they are throwing them out from. How many bedrooms? Throwing them out of the house, throwing them out of the house. No, please, let's not use all those threats. And another thing that we also do as African parents, immigrant parents, is that we discipline them publicly. When you do that, you are destroying their dignity. What you could do to a child, maybe a 2-year-old child years ago, and say, sit down, keep quiet. Go tell your teenager in a group setting, I'm talking, will you keep quiet there? The teenager will say, sorry, Mom, sorry, you can't talk to me in that manner. If you are not careful, that teenager might even disrespect you in that public place. The eyes that can happen might just carry a bag or his bag and walk away and leave you. So never attempt to, discipline them in a public place. It's not good. Don't shame them. You are destroying their dignity and self-esteem. And another one that we do also, when a child does something wrong, the whole family will hear. All your extended relatives, all the aunties, uncles, they will know what is going on. Sometimes your colleague in work, your next door neighbor, your pastor, everybody will know. When you have that habit, please, I'm just advising you, stop it. You are destroying that child's self-esteem and dignity. A lot of people that get to know what your child is going through or know his behavior, attitude, maybe he's not drinking, he's not doing this. What have they done about it? What have they done about it? Some of them do have it in their own family, but they won't say it out. They won't say it out. Please don't shame your children because you want to discipline them. Don't shame them. I remember a story of one of our senior couples here in Ireland, of how his son slapped him. The father slapped the son in a gathering. The son slapped his father back. And the community went to wrap him up to beat him. The father said, please leave him alone. It's my fault. It's my fault. Because the devil can just something little and escalate it. So we need to be very careful. This side of the world is different though. It's very, very different. As much as we want to promote our culture and our cultural values and everything, we must be very, very careful, on how we parent our teenagers, because they're going to be adults. How we parent them. But there's a power struggle there from childhood, this transition from childhood to adulthood. We must be very careful. They don't have that 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 2 minutes to process things again and say, okay, let me think back. It's my mom or dad that is talking. No. At that time, when you want to show power, we are equal. They don't know whether it's your mom, whether it's mom or dad anymore. Anyway, let me just quickly round up now. Number 6, give them some control. Like I said, teenagers need independence. Involve them in decisions when possible. Like, what do you think is a fair consequence? Like my daughter told me this a few days ago. That it's always good that we talk about this. What's actually a fair consequence? And for the young ones, like those ones in the age of 14, 15, maybe taking their mobile phone, from them, maybe that might work. Probably telling them that you're not going to go out, you're staying indoors today. For doing that, So offer choices within limits, then this builds accountability instead of rebellion. When they're part of the planning in terms of what the consequence will be, they will kind of reflect and make positive changes. So reinforce positive behavior. That's very, very good. As parents, you have to reinforce positive things. When they do things well, celebrate them. Celebrate them. You can tell the whole world when they do something well. But not when they are not doing well, you not carry your microphone and begin to tell the whole world, this is what this person just did. Benjamin, this is what Benjamin did. Hey, may God Almighty protect our children. A lot of people that will report them to, rather than they praying for the children's good, for our children's good, a lot of them are taking the matters elsewhere, aggravating the behavior in a different dimension. I don't want to go into that, but please, parents, be careful, be wise. And also, sorry, I'm almost there now. Be a role model. Model good behavior. Very important. They will tell you that we are in a world that is not do as I say anymore, is do as I do. Before you ask me to do something, have you done it? Ah, mom, can you do that? Let them see you do it. Do it with them. That will actually make it easier. You know, and sometimes when we're rushing to church and we are beating traffic, and they're telling you that, oh my God, just beat the red light there. And you're telling us that it's wrong to break the law. Oh, I'm really sorry, I just couldn't match the brake. You could see that. Just take responsibility. Don't defend yourself. Don't paint it. Oh, I'm sorry. I just couldn't match, because I'm really sorry. I won't do it next time. I will do it next time, So the next one is pick your battles. Pick your battles. Not everything needs to be a confrontation. There are times that they will probably be expected that you will confront things with them. You just overlook. Ignore it. Ignore it. So the 10th one says repair after conflict. And I'm actually going to leave it here because this is how my dad raised us when we were growing up as children. I grew up in a family of 6 children, 5 girls and a boy. I'm the 5th child of my parents. Before my dad will raise his hand against you, you will know for real that you have done the undoable, the unforgivable. Because he will be counting it. So by the time it comes to you, you'll just be regretting, why did I even push Baba to this level? But one thing that my dad always do, or one thing I did in the past, in those days, after disciplining us, he will always come to us to have that conversation, to remind us why we were disciplined. He won't leave us to go to bed with that pain. You understand me? He will always come back and have that conversation. Until date, I do with my children, all my 3 children. That whenever we have an issue, probably I've put some disciplinary measure in place, I'll go back and say, this is what you did. That's the reason why I had to go this way. But I love you because you are my child. And I want the best for you. I tell you, that child will never forget. Next time when similar behavior happens, before you know what, the child will be the one that I'll be sending messages. Oh, mom, oh, dad, I'm really sorry. I just did what I'm not supposed to do. I'll be more responsible next time. So it's very, very important that you have a conversation. Never allow your child go to bed with pain or grief in her heart. That, because you have, things have happened and he or she has been disciplined, you just allow her to go to bed that way without having a conversation again. That conversation is important. But if that child is not ready, probably still angry, let the child be. Then in the morning, you can organize breakfast. Somebody might say, oh, we are pampering them. I'm just saying what works for me. I have a breakfast. I say, can you come downstairs and have your breakfast? It's ready. Oh, mom, I'm not hungry. Okay, whenever you're hungry, it's there. Then after a while, the child will come back and say, okay, mom, it's okay. I won't do that again. Never allow your child, to get so sucked up with, with pain, with tears, with grief, and all that bitterness, resentment in their heart. Because when that is there, when those things are there, they might not be able to take the discipline that you are trying to communicate into action. So build protective habits, know your teens, friends, and routines, encourage a safe online behavior, teach consent, boundaries, and risk awareness. These are very important. But there are some gray areas, like drinking, parties. Underage drinking is illegal, so set clear rules and supervision. Then relationships, support guardians, especially around consent laws. Very, very important. Before they sign anything, before they consent to anything, they should let you know. Let them know that they might not know everything, but it's important that they get to know what the law says. Online safety, monitor risk. If you are a parent here, please, you should ask your teenagers, in a kind way, the young ones, so not the 16 or 17, those young ones maybe in the age of 14, 13. Please, I still need access to your phone. We need to do your phone screening. It's not like we don't trust you enough, but it's just that we want to ensure that you are doing the right thing. But when you're asking 17 years old that I need your phone screening, you're looking for trouble. But because you have done it from that age of maybe from 0, whatever age that you gave the child for, to 13, 14, 15, by the time the child is 16, because 16, there are some consenting laws that are going to 16, that child will become more, safety aware, risk aware, and all that. Okay, so when to seek extra support? If there's ongoing conflict, risk, behavior, or communication breakdown, a family therapist or counselor can really help. Not because something is wrong, but because you want better tools. It's just that some of us sometimes, it's only when things are escalating, they are going the other way, that's why we speak out. Please speak out on time. Like what I do in the church, I allocate our youths to mentors. So our youths have mentors in church. They have young adults as well that they can actually link up with, that disciple them. In summary, think of safety as a balance. Protection plus respect plus guidance equals lawful parenting. Lawful parenting. You are allowed to set rules, enforce consequences, guide behavior, but not harm, control excessively, or neglect needs. No, you're not supposed to do that. Okay, in conclusion, raising teenagers with a safeguarding system within a safeguarding system means balancing protection, guidance, and respect for their independence. In Ireland, parents must meet legal responsibilities while avoiding harm or neglect, supported by agencies like TUSLA. So effective parenting involves clear boundaries, no harmful discipline, and open communication. By focusing on safety, trust, and personal development, parents help teenagers grow into responsible individuals while staying within the law and promoting their overall well-being. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you
much.
so much. Please, let's show my big sister love,
Very much.
appreciation
Thank
for
you
that
very much.
beautiful message,
Thank
for
you
that
so much.
beautiful teaching. And when you were talking, Ma, I was just thinking, I still have a lot to do. I still have a lot to learn because this topic is broad. Thank you so much, Ma. You've taught us a lot, and I hope that, that's the same with everybody here. So I don't know if we have a question. Please, this is the time to bring up questions. Put your hands up if you've got any question to ask. And while you are thinking about your question or typing, I do have a question, Ma.
Okay.
And that question is, at what point does, chastisement become abuse? I'm talking about physical chastisement now. Is it really? Because there's a gray area. There's a gray area of what they call reasonable punishment. So is it a no, you are not allowed to smack your child, or you are not allowed to smack your child? I'm not advocating for smacking. I'm not at all. But I just want that area to be clear. So is it you are not allowed at all,
You are
or
not
you are
allowed
not
to.
allowed to hit your child with something and leave a mark? So which is
No.
which, mark?
And well, you're not allowed at all. You're not allowed to smack your child. I know that some parents would have done it anyway, and when they are confronted by social work services, they will always say that, oh, they never knew because this is what they were taught growing up and also in the church. But based on the law that guides my practice as a social worker, you are not allowed to smack your child.
Like a small one in the butt? No?
That small one in the butt, by the time that child leaves the house and go tell the teacher, before you know what's happening, you'll be they'll start dragging you. Only when you are in the field that understands better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is that reasonable punishment then? Is it the taking of the phone away from them? Is that what is classed as reasonable punishment?
Let me tell you something. The reason why our parents actually smack us, like my dad would always say in those days, is because children, the reason why smacking always come in the first place is that the heart of a child is like, you have a lot of foolishness. You know, when you have cassava, cassava, whatever that they want to use for gari, and the goat keeps coming, and the owner of cassava keeps eating the goat, the goat will not, go until when the goat gets a harder one. So, because of that foolishness, parents believe in those days that when a child has been corrected over and over and over and over again, and the child is not really taking it on board. So by the time I smack this child, for this child to repeat the same behavior and reflect on the pain, that child will not go back to that behavior. Now let's ask ourselves, how many children did that actually hurt? That smacking that our parents did. How many of them? So if you compare, they are not much. Rather, the smacking actually communicated a very wrong parenting to all of us. And it now became a pattern. And what the system that we find ourselves is doing now is to change our mindset by teaching us better ways of parenting. And then you also look at your child. You have children at home. Every one of us as individuals, even as an adult, we have a weak link. There's something that somebody will do to us that will break us a bit and make us feel bad. You are married, I'm married. My husband knows what he would do that will actually make me feel bad. Like, he will say, okay, because he has telling me not to do this thing, now I'm going to actually discipline you. Next time when I want to do that, I will remember that yesterday I was disciplined for doing this. I don't want to go to that route anymore. So our children, they know. We know what we know what they will do. They know that they know what they will do and what as parents we will do that will make them not to go back to it. I remember in those days, for my youngest, she loves devices to the extent that one of my devices, the iPad that I got years ago, the iPad battery ran out. She almost broke the iPad because the battery ran out. So she goes so angry. She just, hey, I say, I can see your attachment to this device. So whenever she does anything, and you just this phone for the next 1 or 2 hours, you're not having it because you have acted against the plan. Because we actually agreed a plan, so we have the contract that she signed. So, and the contract is working. So if she works against the contract or she breaches the contract, so we take the phone for 1 or 2 hours. I tell you, in another 1 or 2 weeks, she won't repeat it. She won't repeat it. Then for one of my adult children, because we have a family plan where we pay bills, our phone bill, mobile bill is actually on one plan. I told one of them, I said, I'm not going to pay your bill anymore. After you're working, you should start paying your bill. The child thought I was joking. In my own stylish way, I went to Vodafone. I didn't actually go there to go and disconnect. I just went there, came back. I said, I went to Vodafone yesterday, and this is what they said. So they've given me guidelines on how I'm going to take a number of the family account if you don't pay bill. Before I knew what was happening, this person sent the bill for 3 months into the account. So our children, they know what we can do to discipline them. It's important as parents that we study our children and know what breaks them. Know what breaks them. Even as an adult, your sibling knows what she can do now that will break you.
Yeah.
But it's just that sometimes we always want to go back to that level of eating, and it's so annoying that even as parents, when you start eating a child, you continue to eat that child. It never stops. It never stops. So there are better ways of parenting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Sister Ngozi, you did put your hand up. Wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what she has said that physical chastisement does not work. because it doesn't work, that child will grow up and resent you. You'll be cat and dog. Fine, your parents, but that child would just say, you know what, I don't like you because you were not nice to me when I was growing up. And they speak it out when they get children's services or social workers involved in their life. So tell me, what is it you don't like about your parents? Oh, daddy did this, mommy did this, because of this. Now I no longer want. But you're a child, you still need your oh yes, we have boundaries. We have to we have to manage that expectations, but I don't want them to be controlling me or get into my way or do things. It's because of the past. Also, I just also wanted to talk about like trauma. There's a way trauma affects children which we do not know. And often we say, oh, why is she not doing this? Why is she not doing that? Let's look behind and also think about what this child has been through. If it's a child that was adopted off to an adopted parents, getting to know, okay, these people are not my biological parents. That is trauma she's dealing with. You don't expect her behavior to be, you know, she would do what she's expected to do. She already knows that these are not my biological parents. So I see no reason why I should be listening to them. And you're trying to say, okay, but she's saying to you, fine, they nurtured me, but they didn't give back to me. So we need to also factor that trauma has a way of dealing. It could also be bereavement, how bereavement affects children. It affects them differently. It could be something that they had an attachment with, and all of a sudden that thing is taken out of them, and you begin to see those behaviors, and you're wondering, why is my child doing all this? When you begin to break it down, look at the strength in that child, you might be able to unpick those gray areas and try to work on it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. The analogy that Dr. Ruth used, my pastor actually used the same today in church. We were talking about this event, just reminding my brethren to join in. And my pastor said that when they attended the program some time ago, somebody told them that you hitting your child, like you're treating them like animals. That's how you tell animals to do things. You see where they are moving, you see horses or something, or even goats. You got a stick that you need to hit them. It's exactly the same thing that she used today. That we are being discouraged because we don't want to treat these children as animals. And God will help us. That's the reason why we're doing all this, just that we can learn, we can do better. Because when Dr. Ruth was talking about how to manage teenagers, I thought I was doing fab. I just realized that I still have a lot to learn, especially changing my mindset from that authoritative area where it has to be how I want it. It has to be how, I've said, okay, you do this, you do this, you do. It has to be like that. To, shifting from that mindset to actually listening to them. To actually, one thing I've just picked up is we can actually do it your way as long as it's reasonable. As long as there is no safety involved or no safety risk, that's the right word. As long as there's no safety risk involved, we can actually do it your way. And I think that's something that I've picked so far from this. I don't know about any other person. So at this junction, please unmute your mic. If you have any question, this is the time to ask your question, or if you want to add anything. We have two very seasoned social workers. I'm so proud that we're doing this. So if you have any question, please unmute your mic, or if you want to put it in the chat, or if you want to send it to my WhatsApp privately, and then I can read it out. Please, let's do that quickly. While we're waiting for that, if any comes through, another thing, Sister Ngozi, you talked about holidays and, taking the kids out for maybe funeral, how it will count against them. At our workplace, when we do have, family stuff like that, they do give us some leave, which is not necessarily used against us. Does that not apply for children? Say you've got a funeral. Wedding is, we can say, I want to take them to my brother's wedding in Nigeria. But when it's something like for their grandma, their granddad, would that necessarily be counted against the children?
Well, the problem is because of COVID, things have there's been a lot of law tweaking. We know that COVID impacted a lot of children. They stayed at home. A lot of them also having caught up with what they're studying. They still have interventions in place. Now, some schools will look at it from this point to say, who did the family, who is this child to, who, the person that died, what is the relationship between the person and the child? When the person was alive, was the person a huge support network or a protective factor to these children? Now, if it's your grandfather or the children's grandfather, they haven't seen the children before, the school will not approve. They will say no, they have no connection, they have no relationship. What's the point stressing them? Why should I approve that absence for someone they haven't seen physically, for someone that has not been part of their growing up? So they weigh the options, bearing in mind that they want a lot of children, more children, to be at school, because they know that once a child loses or is absent in school, it impacts on the learning. You see it in the marks, you see it in their grades. For a child who attends school regularly, it's shown on the grades. For a child who misses school, they'll tell you the attendance, and they'll let you know how it impacts on their learning. So that's why most times they go through a lot of questions asking you, okay, what is that relationship? When was the last time they saw? Have they ever met with the person? When the family member was alive, what did that family member do to the child? So they'll look at it holistically and say, no, if you go, good luck. You might come back and things will be okay. But if there are courses around safeguarding, the school will remind you that you took the children out without their permission. And that will be used against you
Okay.
also. They will look at things that you're doing that is not promoting the child's welfare and use it against you. You know, it will be one of them. They will use it against you. It is usually safe when you want to take them out, you talk to the school and give your reasons and they sign it off. But if you just, they say, okay, we're waiting for you, don't worry. You know, let anything come up that has to do with safeguarding, we'll bring it forward and let the local authority that this mom, we've always had questions, we've always had concerns around her parenting. You know, they'll bring out things you think that are very, very minor things that shouldn't be brought up, but you know, they've been putting it down against you, not the child. So you weigh the options.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. I don't know if Dickiness, Dr. Ruth want to add to that, ma.
I think I'm just gonna be saying this from my own perspective, based on my experience as well as a social worker in Tusla and also as a parent. You know, it's just around what is reasonable. I don't think any school will in Ireland here will stop a parent from taking a child home for granny's funeral, grandfather's funeral. But I don't think it's ideal if you are traveling for 2 weeks for a child to miss school for 2 weeks. You know, so what I always say to parents that are planning such trips, it should always be around holiday time or maybe midterm break. That even if they're going to miss school, it could just be for a few days, okay? And the school is notified. And even when they are given the permission, it's not relationship based. I've never had a bad relationship because I remember going home last year for my mom's funeral with my daughter that is in secondary school. All I did was to inform the school that she was coming home. And it was during the midterm break in February, the Valentine's midterm break here for 1 week. So she missed school for some days. So they don't really raise eyebrow around it. But another thing that I want us as a community to be very mindful of, so it doesn't look as if we're walking on eggshells, you know, that God will raise advocates for us and mouthpiece for us also in these areas, you know, because at the end of the day, when someone is going for a funeral and the school is saying no, I will be worried that there's an issue there that has to do with culture or probably race or anything. Because if it's the other way, they could actually go say goodbye to granddad or goodbye to grandma, you know. So I think we have to be careful. But however, we also need to be mindful of how many days is the child missing school for. Why would I take a child off school for 2 weeks because of funeral? No, that's unacceptable. You know, but if child is going to miss school for like 3 days or 4 days, fair enough. But personally, what I do, I always request for the homework. I always request for the homework. I'll tell my child, please, all the homework that you missed, I want to have them on your email. And I also send email to the teachers. please, we need all the homework so I should be able to catch up with school.
Mm.
And I think it's a good thing for parents also to put into their, put into plan. When you're leaving and your child is going to miss school, request for homework so that wherever your child is or whenever she comes back, she's able to meet up and, do the homework that she has missed.
Thank you
With the
so much,
academic
Ma.
skills.
Thank you. I think that's explained a lot as
Yeah.
well. Somebody put in the comment section, they said, contract works very well for me. That's not something that I've done before. I never knew that's a thing, actually.
Yeah,
I
it
just
does work,
talk.
yeah.
He said, I asked my son to write it himself, sign it, and it's a digital copy. So we agreed can be shared with any adult at home. So that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I've never done that. Mine is just talk. So I think that's actually fabulous. And our other sister said, how do we guide our children without controlling them? Because that's a big question. How do we guide our children? Because more often than not, they will not understand that we're trying to guide them. And I actually wrote that down. God bless you, Sister Comfort, for that question. I said, mindset shift from authoritarian to guardian. I wrote that down when I think it was Sister Ngozi was talking, or Dr. Ruth. I said, how do I actually shift from being that authoritarian to being a guardian, where I just want to do the right thing. I just want to move them in the right direction. So please, if I'll start with Dr. Ruth, Ma, before we go to Ngozi, so she can answer. So how do we do that, Ma, please?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so like I always say to parents, what has worked, and also as a social worker, given the age of your child, it's important that you make that child understand, why are we here? What is your plan? What are you doing? What's the issue? What's the challenge here? When you are able to identify the challenge and you name it, let that child be able to, think of a better approach to managing risk that goes with that challenge. If the child is not seeing any risk at all, because one of the things that always cause issue between us as parents and children is that we see the risk, we tend to kind of see everything that they don't see. We'll say that we have, we've gone through this years ago, we don't want them to go through it. So it's important that we sit down with them and name the situation on ground, identify the challenge, and say, okay, these are the risks. Don't you see this risk? Oh, no, Mom, I don't see it that way. Okay, what do you see? Listen to the child. And I tell you, the risk that you have identified, probably you're able to break it down into 10 places. That child, if that child is going to mention it, it will still be mentioning that same risk, but in one sentence. If only we can just listen. But because we are able to break that risk into sentences or break it down because because we've had experiences and we know that it can come up this way or that way or the other way or that, it's one risk, just one risk. Then when you listen to the child will tell you that, oh, Mom, no, there's no fear there. You're too scared. You're too worried. Okay, now let me hear from you. What do you think? Don't you see the same risk? The child will tell you that, okay, this is what he or she sees. And it's the same risk, but in one sentence.
Thank you, Ma. I hope that answered your question, my dear sister.
One risk in
Thank
one
you so
sentence.
much.
Then you will now ask the child, how do you think you can actually avoid this from happening? Because every client that I come across in social work, and it's one of the things that I've learned in my career, every human being on planet Earth, they actually they know the solution to their problem. It's just the inability to actually accept it as a solution. That's the struggle. And what we do is by empowering the client to make the decision and then see the client through the process of implementing the decisions. But fortunately, as parents, we want to be the one that will identify the risk, decide on how that risk is going to be mitigated, and if possible, put put all the modalities in place, to guide the child like a robot, then the child is not feeling like, my human being, please leave me alone. So it's important that we give them the space to also talk about how they can guide themselves. And if you have more ideas, more suggestions, then you cannot chip it in and say, okay, yours are really good. Can we also add this to it, add this to it, add this to it? And then it goes well.
Thank
I
you,
don't
Ma.
know if I can share this with you. Let me share this experience with every one of us here. My son went to the US last year for a J1. And when the J1 came through for him, that's a work visa for a summer job. So it came quite late because Donald Trump actually changed a lot of things around the vetting, and before everything came through, it was almost a few days to the expiration of the process. So we had to buy a direct flight ticket for him to go to the US. But he was so hesitant in getting a direct flight. Why? Because I told him that when you come from your J1, you're going to give my ticket money. It's not free. I'm getting my money back. He said, Mom, direct flight is too expensive. I don't think I can refund that money. I said, you will refund it. So he was looking for a ticket that was cheaper, that will actually take him through Paris or through whatever to get to America. I said, no, it's your first time in the US alone, so I don't want you to miss your flight. The connection might be very difficult for you. He said, no, Mom, it's not. I insisted. I bought a direct flight for him to New York. And where he was going is a kind of quite remote place in New York State. So I said to him that, okay, when you get to New York, my cousin is going to support you with this, that, that. He said, but Mom, I'll be able to manage. I'm not a baby. But I said, you're still young. You're 19. And it's your first time going there alone. He said, no, Mom. I said, okay, how are you going to do it? Do you know that this young boy gave me a description of how the journey was going to go for him? You know, and where he's gonna when it comes down, where the next means of transportation is going to take from one location to another. He listed everything. And I said, wow, at least you have an understanding of where you're going. And he said, by the way, Mom, you also have the Life 360 app, so why are you worried? Why are you worried? So I eventually made the trip. I wasn't there with him. Is it every time we're going to be following our children everywhere? So let them also give us suggestions of how they can guide themselves against anything. So that's another way we can actually, support our children without controlling them. So
Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Ma. That's a very good example that you've given. Thank you so much, Ma. And like you said, you'll be amazed at what they know, what they can do. And from the comment section, our Sister Oma said, there must have been issues, talking about the absence from school now, there must have been issues with absence about the child previously for the school to say no. And these things don't just happen. Most times, those little things that we think doesn't matter, if we consistently do them, then I think that's where the school authorities will now come and say, oh, this child is always late. This child comes to school dirty, like Sister Ngozi said earlier. And, that's when they'll begin to say, okay, why are you even taking this child away in the first place? And Sister Ngozi, she did answer. I think, was that directed to the question?
Yeah, when I was saying that, it was to the question. When I said, I think you come down to their level to explain some of the worries you have and how that can be managed, safely managed. The idea is to empower them to take decisions, but those decisions must be appropriate, and it must promote their well-being. It must not be decisions that would cause more harm. Then you're moving from one problem to another, trying to manage that harm. It's to empower them, for them to see that strength in them and what they can do with their strength, and not for you to now control them to say, no, you're going to be a doctor. I want one of my child to be a doctor. I want to be mama doctor, or I want, gone are those days. Just guide them. Yeah, it still happens. Just guide them. Okay, if this is what you want, we can do it this way. Or this is, if you're going this way, we can sort it out this way. I believe in asking them, engaging in reasonable conversation with them. But you find out that some immigrants, especially our people, they say, who are you? This little child that I gave birth to yesterday, how are you to tell me? It becomes power tussle, and we don't want that. We don't want that. When it's reasonable, everybody understands, okay, this is my part to play, and these are my parents' part to play, and we work towards that goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I don't know if we have any more questions. We've gone past the time. We're meant to finish at 6. We didn't start early anyway, but it's almost 5:30, and I think we should end it here now with a big thank you to our guest speakers. Again, let's celebrate our guest speakers, please, for their time. This event is free. They did not collect any money from me. And I know how time, is, spending your time to do research and share is a big deal to me. So I just want to encourage us to appreciate them, to take these messages or these lessons that we have learned home and be better parents. Because in terms of managing my teenagers now, I think I'm going to drop some African parents things that I've been doing unconsciously, where I think is only my way that is the right way. Sometimes, like you rightly said, listen to them, give them responsibility, let them understand identify the risks with them, and just let them take some responsibility as well. That's one big deal that I have learned. So we do appreciate you. So Dr. Ruth, I don't know if you want to talk about your foundation, please. Just to, tell us what you do, ma.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Emma, for giving me the space to talk about my foundation.
Thank you, ma.
So Sisters Heart Foundation is a foundation that is registered in Nigeria. So basically what we do is to empower widows, empower widows, create businesses for them, and just to be able to ensure that they are able to look after their own children as well. So whatever anyone has, in any way you can support, we'll gladly appreciate. And every year in December, we also give them hampers. So we'll be doing this now for over 5 or 6 years, and it's been going well. Last year was fabulous. That's what we gave in December. December 2025 was a huge one. And as God will have it, I think we're able to raise close to 7 million naira, if I'm not mistaken, from the little group that we have. So I always say to people, when you support a widow, you are supporting a huge generation, because that widow also will be able to look after our children. So that's basically what we do in our foundation. Thank you so much for the space. God bless you.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, ma. If you want to put the link to your page in the comment section, ma, please, so others can go follow and, donate as much as they want to, please. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for being here. Like most of you know, Divinely Classic, we love health education. And my dear sister Omar, I've told her that we're going to do something. I need to do something with her, but she's a social worker as well, but she's more with adults, so please stay tuned for our next event. I'm not sure of the date at the moment, but I do have the topic already. Well, I'm still trying to tweak the topic. So please stay tuned. Follow our social media handles, Divinely Classic on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. And there you'll be updated about our events. And, on my WhatsApp status as well. If you have my number, I always put a lot of things. And for people that, know me a lot, I send lots of messages. To be honest, some people have blocked me. Some people, I couldn't send messages to them today because they blocked me. I'm always sending messages, but this is just to promote health education, to promote health and fitness more. And, I also sell my stuff, like I said earlier. So yes, thank you, everyone. Big thank you to Dr. Ruth. Thank you, Sister Ngozi. I am so blessed with the two of you being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I can see Aisha, Sister Anita. Thank you for the contribution. Atinuke, Ben Obidiron, God bless you, sir. Thank you so much, Sister Comfort. I love you so much. Adorable Mom, God bless you. You are a star. Thank you so much for being here. Joy, 25 Ultra, GFM Waterford. Thank you so much for being here. Matt, I love you. Thank you, Mommy Lisa. God bless you, Mr. B. Nikki, Oludayo, Oma, thank you ever so much for being here. And please follow Divinely Classic, follow Sisters Heart Consult. And I don't know if my sister Ngozi, if you got a page that you share things on, you don't do social media like us. We love social media. I talk a lot on social media.
I don't. I'm purely, I would have loved to do that, but with the complexities of what I do,
I know.
It's difficult.
Yes.
But I'm free to offer advice. I don't mind. What I would just say, parents, is if social services get involved, do not fret, please.
Mm.
Do not fret at all. Go through the process, work with them, accept the recommendations. The ones that you're not able to do, be very open and free with them. If you're open, they see that genuinity in you and they begin to, understand where you're coming from and the struggles you're experiencing. Please don't just say no, you're not going to come into my house. No, 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 and become very aggressive. No, if you become very aggressive and they begin to untick the gray areas, it might begin to look like, I think we need to escalate it. I think we need to go to court. I think we need to, seek legal advice. We don't want that. Just engage. Feel free, engage. Share all your worries. You will get the support. Okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Ruth, I don't know if you have one quick last message for us to take home.
Just to let us as parents know that there's nothing wrong if you have a child that is challenging. There's nothing wrong in seeking support. Look for a trustworthy person that you can also speak to about it. And if means consulting other professionals, it could just be something that has to do with assessment that you might not know. It's important that you check things out and do not suffer in silence. Suffering in silence doesn't mean that you tell the whole world your problem. So it's important that you seek support from the right source. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ma. God bless you richly. Thank you, everyone. And this is the end. We'll come to the end of this event. Oludayo said, thank you, speakers. Learned a lot. I'm glad that you've learned a lot. Once again, please follow our social media handles. It's Divinely Classic on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Also on TikTok, but not a lot. I think TikTok is for a lot of younger people, So please follow us, and I'll see you again in my next event. If I do send messages out, please, just engage, share, and yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
And I
so
hope
much.
you
Thanks,
have a
Ngozi.
good
Thanks,
Thank
evening.
you.
everyone.
Bye.
So
Thank you,
much.
Dr. Rhodes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.